Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to another episode of the Indigo Womb Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host and sister friend, Shatia Tee Owsley, and thank you for watching and or listening. So sit back, grab some tea and a notebook, and let's vibe together as we have organic and practical conversations embracing intuitive womb wisdom, spirituality, and a sprinkle of magic to rebel, restore, and radiate overall wellness in our lives. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Indigo Womb Podcast. I am your host and your sister friend, Shatia Tee Owsley, and today I would like to introduce our guest, the beautiful, the amazing Miss Nicky Dawkins. Nicky is a certified full circle doula, certified hormonal health practitioner, an herbalist, a speaker, an author, a mentor, and a mama. She is the creator of Menstrual Doula, a unique series of programs, events, and gatherings that empower women and menstruators to reclaim the power of their womb. Nicky's teachings combine traditional methods of ancestral and experience-based practices with evidence-based information. Her work as an educator and an activist in reproductive health space has impacted the lives of uteruses of thousands of people. After years in the game, Nicky was affectionately dubbed as the first ever menstrual doula by NBC legal analyst and TV host Katie Fang. Girl, hey!
Thanks, Katie.
Oh
What an intro.
yeah, I love it.
Wow.
And I
Thank
love
you.
reading it. And let me just tell y'all, that is only just that is just the tip of the iceberg of the bio for Miss Nicky. I am so happy that you are here. I am so happy that you responded to my TikTok DM the way I slid in them DMs. Hey girl, hey. And that we are here today. We had such a wonderful conversation, just getting to know each other before we got to this point. And so I'm happy to have you here today. I know I read your bio, but I want you to just tell the people who is Miss Nicky? Who is the menstrual doula?
Well, I feel like you did such a great job. There's not much more to add. I feel like that really is the bulk of my work, and I think maybe what I could add is the reason I do what I do, and that's just because I deeply believe that our womb journeys really begin with our very first period, our very first menstrual experience, the menarche, I like to call it. And I think that carries over into all the other reproductive health experiences that we might have throughout our whole lives, all the way to menopause. And I really love the idea of being able to serve people from that moment on and being there for all the wins, the losses, the good, the bad, the ugly, I like to say, of your womb journey. So that's me. I'm Doula. I'm here.
Yes. So how did you get started? Because you are a full spectrum doula, but even through all of this, you're an herbalist and you do a lot of other work, but you have been dubbed the menstrual doula. So what was your journey before you got the famous name of menstrual doula? What has your journey looked like?
I feel like I've, many lives, many lives. But I actually started working in entertainment, and I actually had a blog called Hype Girls. And on that blog, I would feature mostly women and people that were in the industry. And I also really like to talk about like wellness on the blog. When I became pregnant with my son, I was kind of over the industry, and I was like, I'm just going to talk about what's happening with my vagina and just see what happens. And I got such a great response. I was invited to some conferences, and then I actually won an award for the best health blogger in South Florida. And that's when I was like, you know what? I like this. I'm going to see what else I can do here. One of the blogs I wrote connected me to a wonderful, wonderful woman named Kelly from Steamy Chick. She's like our yoni steaming guru. I feel like she does all the research, and she's just this incredible person. And she offered me her training in addition to a free yoni steaming box that I still have to this day, my sacred box. And she got me my first certification and entry into the field of womb work. And then from there, I trained with Latham Thomas at Mama Glow, who I stalked on Instagram. She invited me to her first round of trainings, and that was kind of the beginning of my journey. And I feel like it was a wise decision for me to kind of adjust myself and go down this path because I love it so much, and it's so fulfilling, and I feel like it really impacts the world. And when we become mothers, we just look at things so differently, and the changes we want to make are much deeper. And so I'm really happy that that was my menarche, I guess, and my launch into the space.
Yeah. So when you were growing up, was wellness something that was big in your family? Was it discussed? Was it talked about? Just holistic living, was that just in your culture, in your nature, in your upbringing, or was this something that you learned over time?
I would say a little bit of both.
Okay.
My background is Jamaican. Both of my parents are Jamaican. On my mom's side, I feel like in particular, my mom is Jamaican Indian. I mean, in Jamaica, you're just Jamaican, by the way.
Right.
Like, it's not really a thing. But just to clarify, just the background of where some of that comes from, that
Mhm.
herbalism comes from for me, was really on her side. My mom was always very holistic, so a holistic practitioner. She always took really good care of herself. My dad's side was full of medical professionals,
Mhm.
but really unhealthy ones, which I find interesting. But even just in that culture, like you grow up with a lot of herbs around you naturally. Like I remember drinking, sea moss every day and certain teas and herbs that were ginger and all these things that were just part of our food, that are now coming to light as to be very beneficial. And people in the islands, they tend to live a long time for the most part. So I was always intrigued by that and always recognized that. And also just how important environment and people were to your overall well being was definitely something that I take away from my childhood. And I feel like I was super blessed to be able to experience my culture as a Jamaican, as they call us, because I was born here. So I do feel like it was always embedded in me. And then for me to just be able to explore it more on my own as I got older, especially being in this field, it was just like a instant connection because I was like, oh, I know this stuff already. Like I've
Mhm.
already been doing this. My father, always grew up gardening around plants. Same with my mom's side. So it was just a very natural transition for me, and kind of completed the circle. I feel like in the end of why I feel the way I feel, why I feel connected to herbs, why I feel connected to womb work, why I feel so connected to my culture.
So your transition from entertainment and then into motherhood is how you started on this journey into the birth work field, right? Is that how it happened?
I feel like pretty much. And when I became pregnant and even in my own period care, I always tried to have a more natural approach just based on what I learned from my family.
Mhm.
Certain teas that you drink, or like the ginger, or things that you can just do. So it was always kind of there. And then when I was working in entertainment, if you've worked in entertainment, it's very difficult to take care of yourself. You're always on the go, you're always having to be out there, you tend to be running around, things tend to be quick, and I really didn't like that. And so I started off by transitioning down to becoming fully vegan. I was already kind of pescatarian. I didn't
Okay.
really do a lot of meat. And then when I was pregnant, I started eating a little bit of fish again. And then I just kind of just kept progressing into like a more healthier lifestyle and coming out of entertainment. But I do think for me, most of the journey out of that was just the mindset of the people. That feeling of being able to take care of yourself and not feeling guilty about it because somebody else needs something from you. And also not having to people please, which is also a part of it, right? Feeling like you always have to impress someone or do something for someone because it's going to do this for your artist or this for your career. So I think all of that holistically is important to think about in my journey from leaving that space. As much as I loved it, because I did enjoy it. It was fun. It was a
Yeah.
party girl.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes. So within that time, just kind of going back to once you found out that you were pregnant and you decided, hey, it's time for me to kind of transition and move away from just the hustle and bustle of the busyness of the entertainment industry. What did that look like for you? And what was the adjustment going from being so busy all the time to, I would assume, slowing down a lot, right?
I wish I did slow down, but I didn't. I was so excited about realizing that people were responding to what I was putting out there on my blog that it made me excited and just made me drive that energy and towards just a different path, which is exactly what happened. And that bred me doing these mommy community events with Work It Moms into starting the Period Miami chapter to provide menstrual products for people and then being able to just expand, that knowledge and also just my natural journalism, I like to say,
Mhm.
into making sure people were very well informed and knew that there were these other options for your body and things that you could do to help your period and your pregnancy, really,
Yeah.
and your postpartum, right? All of it.
So what were
Yeah.
some of the things that you discussed and talked about on your blog?
I mean, pretty much all the things people don't want to talk about. I feel like I love to live in the taboo. I love to talk about things that people don't talk about. And I tend to do them early on when I'm an early adapter. So something's out there. I'm like, oh, let me see what's up with this. So I was talking about things like CBD. I was talking about lightning crotch. I'm sorry.
And
I was
let's
talking about,
pause
oh,
right there for those who don't know what lightning crotch is, or maybe have never experienced. Nikki, if you could just give us a little tidbit, just drop a little gem on what lightning
I
crotch
mean,
is.
it's exactly what it sounds like. It just is, it tends to happen when you're in pregnancy. I would say more second trimester, third trimester. I hear more about people having lightning crotch, but it's just like a very sharp, jolting, shocking little like pain that kind of makes you like this. And sometimes it hangs around for a little bit and then it kind of goes away, but it really feels like you just got struck by lightning in your vagina.
And where does it come from? Why does it happen?
So to be honest, I don't really fully understand the science of why lightning crotch happens. From what I know, it's just because your uterus is continuing to expand and your baby is moving, and causing these kind of like jolting situations to happen. But I also learned that lightning crotch can still happen even when you're not pregnant,
Hmm.
which is something I discovered in my period work, that even within your cycle, you can get these like weird little lightning crotch situations. But the key is to kind of walk it off, stretch it out, breathe through it. It usually doesn't last very long, but it can be a little like, what on earth is happening right now?
And that's also, or I would say, around the same lines of those of us who experience pain in your butt during your cycle
Hmm.
as well.
Yes.
And so instead of having it in the front, you have like this shooting pain going down
Hmm.
your butt, like almost where it will knock you into the wall. Right. So I would
Yeah.
assume it's the same, everything that's just happening going on down there.
Yeah, I know with the lightning butt, and I still
Yeah.
give it a name, with the lightning butt, your period, sometimes a lot of it is gas and bloating buildup as well. It's a lot of just, whenever you get the little pooch, little fupa. So sometimes just taking things that are anti-inflammatory or, will relieve gas can kind of help with that. And also movement, even though you don't feel like you want to move, you'd be surprised, movement, certain yoga poses, certain stretches. Also, if you don't have a squatty potty, get you a squatty potty and get those knees up. I promise you it will relieve a lot of
Hmm.
that pressure and pain. It really works. Yeah, just saying. Get the knees up. Put them on the toilet, put your feet on the toilet, and just do it. It's fine. No
Yes.
one has to see you. You're in the
Yeah.
bathroom.
Unless you have toddlers who are coming in, right?
They don't care
They
and they
don't.
can learn.
They don't care. Yes.
Learning lesson.
Yes. So as the blog evolved and you were being noticed of the things that you were sharing, what evolved from that? What came from, just the taboo topics that you were talking about, the stuff that people think about, the stuff that people whisper about, but they're not talking out loud about, right? And then for
Yeah.
you to come out and say, hey, this is happening. This is what's going on with me. This is what's going on with my friends. This is what I'm hearing. This is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm experiencing. And to see those things, whether it's in a video or a blog, for many people, it's a sigh of relief to say, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not going through this by myself. There are other people experiencing this. And so they, in essence, can find their tribe, right? And so I assume that there was traction and that there was, a lot of support because people were able to see that they were not alone in what you were sharing and what you were talking about. Can you just kind of go in and just tell us a little bit more about how the blog evolved and where that kind of led you, like within the, I don't know, 6 months to a year after you started the blog, and what that started, what that transformed into and what that looked like for you?
Yeah. Well, the blog definitely, it brought me community. It made me see that people were interested in hearing about this. And I think at that time, because this was like 2014,
Hmm.
and it was a little bit different 10 years ago. I mean, people were kind of definitely being more open, but nobody was really talking about vaginas and periods the way that they are now, or leaky boobs and or any of that stuff. It just wasn't, it was more taboo. But I found within the blog, because I was too terrified to do it on social media at the time. And I still have that like fear. I'm like, oh my gosh. But I did find comfort in doing it on my blog. And so I actually developed a really large newsletter subscription. And then that's when I kind of decided, you know what, I think I'm going to try and do some like live gatherings. And the first one I did was actually a connection I made from winning the Health Blogger Award. Capital One Cafe was there. They were just opening these cafes down here in South Florida. And I connected with one of their members and she offered the space to me to host this event. And that's how Work It Moms was born. And I opened Work It Moms because I was a new entrepreneur at the time, because I was starting this new side of my business. I only knew the entertainment stuff. I didn't really know like, how do I do this? And I had my son who was a toddler and I would bring him everywhere with me. Not even a toddler. He was like under 2 years old. I was just dragging him along. But I would always also feel like so guilty or feel for like, oh my gosh, is he going to cry in the middle of this person's like session while I'm trying to learn? Am I going to be able to take notes? I kind of made the Work at Mom's community based around that concept. I was like, let's just bring our babies. Let's learn about business from each other. Let's hang out. And that's kind of where that came from. And so the pandemic is what slowed down that. And I had to completely reshift my business into a different model after the pandemic. But that's what we were doing. And it was just really nice to not only build like a community out of these weird things that we all want to talk about, but also just out of the need of having a village. Because, you know, here in America, you're really kind of on your own unless you build a village yourself. Whereas I feel like it's very built into other cultures already, or family structure is already built in to provide a village, where that's not always the case here. So it was really interesting to see how we would just watch each other babies, or be like, go ahead, girl, you can go get that coffee, go use the bathroom, go to the bookstore next door. We got you. It was just so nice to see that like happening, in addition to us being able to just talk freely about the things that we want to talk about and complain about our partners and, you know, our jobs and how they don't have a place for us to breastfeed, and just all of those things that were very overlooked at the time that are now completely blowing up. It's changed so much. Sometimes I cannot believe how many maternal health groups, how many mommy chats, how many period conversations are happening. It's so amazing and beautiful. But at the time I was doing it, it just wasn't like that. It was just a new journey. But it was really, really beautiful to see how much people have grown. And I think something that I really love about the communities that I create, Work at Moms, Menstrual Doula, is I really try and keep them open. I really try and keep them a space where we can all bond over this similar thing that we share, no matter where you live, what culture, religion you believe in, what you look like, color of your skin. We all go through this stuff with our uteruses. We all do. As you know, and I really appreciate that we have those specialized groups, you know, for Black moms, Indigenous moms, Hispanic moms. I think that's so important that we have those spaces and safe groups. And I love to see how that has also developed in mom communities. But I also always like to come back to the rooted fact that like we all started with this period, and it was such a way for us to connect and look over, I don't know if I can swear, but all the BS that's going on right now and all the division that they have tried to create for us. And I feel like that's why there's so much power in the communities that I create, is because I really think about that very deeply. I can connect with my story with somebody who does not look like me, who doesn't come from the same background like me. We can both have the same story, and we can bond over that, and we can create more community out of that and more positivity out of that, instead of, you know, combating or making it a thing where, oh, well, you know, you're privileged, you're this. That is all very true. But I feel like this is a space where we can kind of even out a little bit in some ways. Not all now, you know, healthcare we still got some problems. But I do feel like when it comes to that storytelling, that connection, that deep connection as women or as womb holders, that is so powerful. And that's something that I feel like they're trying to take away from us. And we need to not let them do that and
Yeah.
talk to each other, you know?
Yeah.
I went on a tangent there.
No, I love it. And that's what this is. It's just organic conversation, right? And
Yeah.
we just are flowing. So and that's what I love about it. So one thing, so how did you end up pivoting, and what does Work at Mom look like now, or what was born out of Work at Mom after the pandemic?
So during the pandemic, I kept Working Moms as a practice, running a doula practice, yoni steaming, all of that stuff. And then, you know, as I started working with more women who experience uterine health conditions, in particular fibroids, endometriosis, PCOS, etc., losses, I've experienced abortions in the past, now trying to get pregnant and having fertility issues, etc., I really felt like there was a need to hyper focus on those topics, especially now that they were becoming less taboo. I feel like I had such a history in the field already. It just felt like a right time to make that transition. So while Work at Moms, the brand still exists, it has kind of become this like holding company for all these little DBA things that I have now. But I do hope to one day, you know, get back into having that big community space and center where we can host those gatherings again. But for right now, I do feel like the work is needed in uterine health and needed to get people to talk about their stories and hopefully change that trajectory of reproductive health for other generations that are coming behind us.
So what are the new DBAs? What are the new projects? What are the new projects?
Well, Menstrual Doula is obviously one of them, and that's the main one that I'm focused on right now. And then out of Menstrual Doula, we have a nonprofit side called Menstrual Market, and Menstrual Market is basically a marketplace of period stories and womb stories. So right now, our project is 50 Shades of Red. 50 Shades of Red is period stories across generations and cultures, you know, the 50 shades of our blood that we share. And so the goal is for us to collect 1,000 period stories or womb stories, menopause, perimenopause, whatever, and get them on onto a digital platform and also display them in a very artsy way. So we're going to have a period poetry slam and a panel, and like a little storytelling time. So that's one of the things that we're working on. And then the other thing that we have going is the Bloom Your Womb Retreat, which is a menstrual doula training, basically. And we host that once a year in Costa Rica. There is a little bit of anthropology to it. We do connect with some tribes when we learn what their practices were. And it's just a really beautiful experience for women to connect and also become that womb holder for their community. You don't have to be a professional to join that. You can come and you will leave as a menstrual educator. And then we have our center, the Womb Center, which is a collaboration space where birth workers and moms can come together and do what they do, whether that's host gatherings or get services like massage or yoni steaming. I do a lot of my placenta work out of that space. And that is something that we're currently running a campaign for because we're at risk of closing at the end of May. So yeah, I'll definitely send you that information in case
Please.
you know anyone that wants to help us keep our space open. I'm just trying to raise 10K. It's not a hefty goal. I think we can do it, but yeah, those are the DBAs right now. More to come, but I'm going to stop it there because I don't want to take too long.
Yeah, let's circle back to menstrual doula. You have been dubbed the menstrual doula. And so when people reach out to you, when people see you, and that is the name that has been given to you because of the work that you are doing. And so what does it look like for clients to reach out to the menstrual doula, and what does an intake look like? What will they learn, and how are you assisting them or helping them? What does that process look like to just
Oh,
talk
that's
with
a great
you?
question. I love that. Yeah, so it really all starts with the intake in the website. So typically you can go on there and you can complete a request, and that leads you to set up a online assessment / appointment with me. Some people come in person. Usually I do the first one virtually, and basically it's kind of just a feel around. We always open up with a little breath work, just to kind of ground everyone, because the first question I'm going to ask you is, what was your first period story? And I find sometimes that really uncovers a lot of things for people in the beginning, and a lot of the work is very deep. It's very individualized. I do not just have like packages like that. Everything is super customized based on the work that we're doing together. But after the session, then we kind of set up a plan or a program based on what you want to do. Some people do a full, months packages, and I have some people that just want to do session by session. It just depends on what we're working on. Many of the women I see are dealing with fertility. I also work with moms who are trying to help their daughters in menarche or experiencing menarche. And then I also have my very popular right now, perimenopause clients. It's the new trend that I'm seeing with a lot of people that I've worked with in the past. But the goal with menstrual doula, and I always like to remind people, is we are not, I'm not a medical practitioner. I am not a medical or clinical provider. My goal is to help you build a plan that works for you and connect the resources and connect the dots between your providers to help you build a really strong womb squad that can help you on your journey, and we work together. And also a lot of my stuff is dealing with the emotions and dealing with the information, right? Because I'm sure, as you know, in this space, like the information is constantly changing. I'm like, that herb might be good today and bad tomorrow. This procedure might be good, this pill might be good, and now it's not. And so a lot of the work is just staying on top of those trends for my clients and making sure that they know, like, hey, this just came out, or this is the latest thing. Here's some research I experienced here, or connecting them to communities that they don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have fibroids, there's a community for that. If you have, insufficient ovary syndrome, there's a community for that. If you're going through menopause, there's a community for that. So just helping them find those practitioners and those groups is also a really big part and strong part of the work. But I feel like a lot of it is getting them on like a regime, a schedule, a planning on something that fits their lifestyle. Because I feel like so many of us, we watch these things online or on TikTok or on the news, and we try and implement them, and they're like, oh, this just isn't working for me, or I can't stick to it. And it's just because it's just not for you. You really need someone to come in that feels close to you to help you kind of navigate what is really going to benefit you, and also helping you deal with the guilt of letting go of the things that you are not able to do that maybe you feel like you should be doing, because sometimes that's the case.
Yeah.
Right? So, as you know, like it's really, really deep work. It goes beyond many of the things I just talked about. In addition to that, it's a lot of custom artwork as well, finding out what the person is already working with and making sure that plan adheres with what they have going on. So if you're on birth control or if you're on antidepressants, like those are things that we need to know, so that way we can work in tandem with that, or make sure you're not, we want to respect what you're doing with your medical provider all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I always do like to remind people, like when you're coming to me, like I'm not going to diagnose you. I'm not going to give you medical advice. You can bring me your blood work. You can bring me all this stuff and I can tell you things. But my goal is not to do that. It's to help you understand it. and help you have a voice and be able to advocate for yourself with your practitioner, and also make sure that they are respecting what you really are trying to accomplish with your body and that they believe in you, right? I feel like, especially with fertility, like I always ask, do you feel like your doctor like believes in you?
Mm-hmm.
Do they believe that you can accomplish this journey the way that you want to do it? Because that's so important, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is something I even take from working in entertainment, and the artists that I work with, the ones that really make it, really have parents or partners who fully and deeply believe that they are going to make it. And I think that just carries over into everything, that all the work that we do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that's something that we talk about a lot, which is why community is so important, why support is so very important in any stage of just the birth work journey, is having that community and having that support. And it may not always be your blood, right? It may not always be the people that you grew up with. You may have to build your own community, but the work that you are doing allows people to know that they're not alone and that there are people, there are other groups, there are others who are out there wanting to love on them and to support them and to work with them on this journey. And so, one of the things that you mentioned is we understand that this is very deep work, right? Just it is very deep and sacred work. It is not just let me give you an herb, let me just tell you to go, get on the yoni pot. It is deep work, right? And so when you're having those first initial intakes and those beginning conversations, a lot of stuff can come up during that time. What are some of the things that you see, and how does the emotional work truly impact the outcomes or the healing process that many families that you work with go through, and how important it is? Because sometimes I think in the US, for sure, we like to compartmentalize and not really see the interconnectedness with everything that's going on within our body, right? The physical symptoms many times are just the body screaming of saying, hey, I tried to tell you this, that there were things that were happening emotionally, or things that were happening spiritually, or things that were happening mentally, and you weren't really listening to me. And so now they're manifesting in you physically, because now you may pay a little bit more attention to your back hurting a little bit more, your knee hurting, or your tummy hurting. And so if we can just talk a little bit more about just the emotional aspect and the spiritual aspect, and how big those two components really play into the work that you do, and the healing that takes place when you're working with your clients.
Such a good point. No, because you can take all the yoga classes and all the herbs in the world, but if you're not willing to recognize and go like a little bit deeper into understanding as to why you do the things that you do, or why your body is reacting the way that it's reacting, then it makes our work a lot harder together. And I always think it's important for, again, like as womb workers, to help them build that team if they aren't building it already. Do you have a therapist? You know what I mean? And what things are you open to? Because I always also like to remind people, herbs don't fix everything. That's why there's medication. Sometimes you really do need the medication, and that's okay. So I think sometimes there's a fear in accepting that as well. And then also with emotional work, a lot of it is just generational. I really believe in that wombology. I don't know if you've heard of that term, wombology. Yeah. Have you read the book
I
Wombology
do. It's
by
it's on
by
my
C.J.
bookshelf. Yeah.
Johnson? Same girl. Okay, CJ, holla. Yes, but it's such just a great example and such a concept of, understanding that what happened to your mother, your grandmother is still carrying within you. In addition to asking women their first period story, another thing I like to ask my pregnant moms is, hey, do you know how your mom felt when she was pregnant with you, or what she was going through at that time? And how that impacted you, which is basically, I feel like, the foundation of that book and what she talks about. And that's emotional work. And sometimes it's things that we don't really want to deal with. And I think for us, uncovering that from our aunties and our moms and our grandmothers is also really, really difficult, because they were just not in a space to be able to discuss some of the things or traumas that they may have gone through, either alone or once they had us or after having us, whether that's something with their partner, something that went on with them physically, trauma within their birth itself, trauma with their parents after they had kids, or if they got pregnant when they weren't supposed to, right? There's just so many things behind that. And I think it's important to assess that. And even with some of the clients that I work with, if they did experience a loss, like how did you manage that loss? Were you able to really process it? Did you honor that loss? Or if you chose to, have an abortion, medically necessary or based on your life, which I am pro-choice and I support what you want to do with your uterus. But sometimes I find I work with people who didn't really process the choice that they were making at the time, or maybe they felt pressured by somebody in their family or a partner. Either way, on both sides, right? Or maybe their practitioner didn't really tell them how it would affect them later in life, but it's something that I see often as well. Like, oh, they never told me that would affect my fertility in the future, or that would put me at risk for Asherman syndrome or things like that, right? They're not talking about it. And I think we suppress that. We push that down. And, it just carries and sits in our womb the whole time. And and then sometimes even just asking those first initial questions that I ask in the intake, like most, it tends to bring up tears, tends to bring up a lot, which is why opening with that breath work is very important, because it allows the body to relax and flow and feel trusted. And I think emotionally, I deal with a lot of women who didn't trust their bodies or regret trusting their body, which is also something that we have to think about. Sometimes our body does let us down, even if we fully trust it. And that can be really difficult for women to understand or deal with. And then also just forgiving our bodies and forgiving ourselves for the things that happen, or the things that maybe we felt that we could have done better, the things that we felt that the pressures we put on ourselves or our body, or the choices that we made. And even though, doulas are kind of therapists, like we're official and licensed therapists for sure, definitely. But I think also as practitioners, it's a fine line for us as well that we have to be really mindful of and careful of, as to make sure you have your therapist referrals, make sure that you understand your own boundaries that you're taking on with these clients with this emotional work. I don't know if you're into the zodiac. I love the zodiac.
Yes, ma'am.
Of course you are. But I'm a Cancer. We're very emotional. I carry every emotion with me all the time. It's very hard for me to stop thinking about my clients after they go through certain things sometimes. And that's a boundary that we have to work on too. Because we're people.
Yes.
Our emotions are also going to affect them, right? And I think that's also a part of the work. And I don't know if you meant that when you mentioned like emotional stuff, but I do feel like us checking our own emotions when we work with people is also something to consider. Are we balanced for this client? Like, can I even take on this weight?
Yes, because it's heavy.
Right? Because it's so heavy sometimes.
It is.
And what does that look like? Right? And what will that look like for the client? Which is something that I feel like we as practitioners have to release too. Sometimes we have to release our own guilt and be like, hey, like I just could not really support this person in a way that I wanted to, because we don't want to dread our work, right? We don't want to dread our work. That's not going to give the right energy. But I think it's important to assess where your client is at and really make sure that they're ready to do the work with you. And if they're not, guide them on a path to get them there. Be like, hey, girl, I think you should go and see this acupuncturist for a couple months and see how that goes, and then we can come back together and see like where you're at, and if you're ready to kind of go a little bit deeper or do some more of these things. I experience it a lot with women who want to come off of the pill or birth control, and so they want to do it like now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we gotta let your body flow off, come off of this first, because your emotions are going to go all over the place. It's a part of it, right? And that can affect the work that you're doing. And we want to make sure that we're doing this in a nice way that is transitional and feels good and warm. And we don't want to drop you in the cold water now.
Yeah, yeah. So, what does it look like, and I know that every client that you work with is customized and it's individualized, which I absolutely love, because it is that individualized attention. It is their story, it is their path, it is their journey, and you work a plan specifically for them, which is beautiful. So I guess it's kind of like a twofold question. You mentioned birth control, and you mentioned, like you said, and I think many birth workers have seen it, especially those who work in fertility. Once they get off of birth control, it's like, okay, all right, I'm off, and now I should be getting pregnant. And for some, it does happen like that. But for many, it does not. It is a process that has to happen. And so what does it look like? Can you just give us like a little sample of what are some of the a little gems or little tips or just a little bit of the information that you provide to someone? And I know that it will look different because everyone's background is different, right? But are there
Yeah.
some basics that for foundational things for people who are just coming off of birth control, that just some tips that you can give or that you share with your clients, that they should be aware of, cognizant of, that they should take into consideration, maybe, just some steps?
Yeah. I feel like anytime you're coming off of birth control or any, HRT or hormone replacement therapy, the main thing you want to do to me is journal. Like I always say, first, let's track every day. Like we're going to track how we're feeling. We're going to track what we're eating and drinking. This does not have to be complicated, by the way. Like you don't have to put like, I had a cup of rice and like, you don't have to do that. Just put
Right.
like, I had rice and peas 2 times today. I had porridge and I had like just write down the food, write down the drinks, and then write down very briefly, like literally how you're feeling. And I say write it down because there's definitely apps for this, but I say to write it because the action of writing it down makes you actually process it and put it like more in your brain than it would on the thing. We're so fast paced with this stuff that we don't really register it. And I need you to register it because then you're going to pay more attention to it because you're going to, and then you can also just see it in your own handwriting, not in a, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yes.
it just does something for you. So that's one of the first things I say, like, let's make sure we have some sort of tracking system that we're going to do for the next, I always start with the 21 days and then you can go as long as you want. But I feel like 21 days is a good marker to see things drop off. You also need to write down, like, if you're taking anything else. So you remember, are I going to keep taking these supplements or not in addition while I'm coming off this, or am I just not doing anything? Staying hydrated is very important. I just have to say it, even though it goes without saying. And then to me, one of my favorite things to do with any client that I'm looking to reset is get them to go outside. And when I say go outside, I mean you need to wake up before the sun comes up, go outside and rise with the sun. Be there outside with the sun when the sun is coming up. It doesn't have to be pitch black. That's great. But when you see that little start to get a little bright outside, go outside and sit outside with that. And don't, sit for 20 minutes. That's usually about what it takes for everything to come all the way up, and put that in your calendar and do it every day. It will help you reset with the earth. And then you want to do the same thing in the evening. So when that sundown is coming, same thing. See, now you can use that. Use that weather app and you can, right? It will tell you exactly what time the sun's coming up and down, and give yourself 20 minutes before the sun sets and do the same thing. Go outside. Add whatever ritual you want to that. I always say this is a great time to journal. This is a great time to write down what you did for the day. This is a great time. To me, what I like to do is I just like to sit and listen to nature. And that's usually what I'll encourage my clients to do. Don't do anything. Go outside and breathe. Listen to the birds. You're going to hear like 20 different birds, but pay attention to it. Pay attention to the smell. Pay attention to the air. Is it warm? Is it hot? Right? Just those little things. It's a sensory experience that you need to have because that is regrounding you with nature's rhythm, which is exactly what you need to do to get pregnant. Not saying you have to sync up with the moon or any of that. I'm not a big follower of that all the time. I think it is a nice way to give yourself that moon connection. But I always tell my fertility clients, like, if you're not, ovulating on the right moon cycle or bleeding, like, that's okay
Mm-hmm.
because there's so much technology. And now what are we on, like 6G?
Mm-hmm.
There's pollution, there's all of this other stuff. We wake up with stress every day. So all of that stuff doesn't align with that the way that it used to back in the day when things were dark and we didn't have artificial lighting and all these interferences. So I say, don't hone too much on that. But if you get there, great. And it feels good. Awesome. But you don't have to perfectly do that. You don't have to celebrate or go outside on a full moon. You don't have to do that. You can go out with you when you feel like it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
wherever the moon is at. Like,
Mm-hmm.
follow your instinct and go with that flow. You don't have to steam on the full moon. Like, you don't have to do that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You're going to do it on your cycle because your cycle is going to be unique and different. But I find like a really good tip for anyone who's looking to reset is to go outside in the morning and go outside at night. The same thing, 21 days, and try and maintain that. I like to drink my tea. I like to listen to the birds. I like to look at my plants. I also recommend, if you can make a little space for you, and if you don't have a balcony or a place to go outside, a great sunny window is fine. Just sit in that sunny window where that sun is coming up. If you can get a few little plants, things that you can grow inside, little basil, little sage, make a little sensory area around so you can just clip a little leaf and, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Those things.
It's like
which is not
adult
something people think.
Montessori.
Yes, it's adult Montessori. That's exactly right. But if you do at the beginning and end your day with it, it decreases your stress level and all the things that are going to upset you getting back on your natural rhythm, because you have to do what you can with the society. You're going to be stressed all day. That's just how we live,
Yeah,
unfortunately, in America.
yeah, yeah.
But if you can take that time and give yourself that window of 30 to 40 minutes a day outside, it will help you re-regulate everything. It really will. Yeah.
I love
So that's
that.
my those are my top three.
I love it. I love that. And while you were saying that, I was like, hmm, my baby currently, it's a boy, right? But just the process of resetting with the rhythm of the earth. And I was just thinking, he wakes up before 5 o'clock most days, 5 a.m. most days. So we may have to take a trip outside and just sit outside and listen to the birds
Yeah,
and just be outside. Because if it can help reset adults, it
it does.
definitely can help reset the babies as well. So I think
Yeah.
that that's
Remember,
beautiful.
we're not nocturnal. We're not
Right.
nocturnal. We're not nocturnal. Like we are
Yeah.
supposed to rise with the sun and relax in the evening. And that's why I encourage that, because it will help you. You'll start to see and pay attention to what nature is doing. Like I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, all the bees are gone.
Mhm.
Oh, the birds got real quiet because they all went to bed. Like it's
Yeah.
interesting to just note those things and kind of follow that. I think the only bonus thing that I would throw in that I recommend is just knowing where you're at with your levels. So if you're
Okay.
deciding to come off, go and get blood work done. So that way you can do it again and you can kind of see like
Okay.
what's happening as well, is the only other thing that I would recommend. And that's something you can do on your own. You don't have to have a referral for that. You can go to Quest and just request your blood work. But if you want insurance to pay for it, then yeah,
Yeah.
get get the prescription, get the referral.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, with so many, there's so many moms having babies over 40. There's so
Yeah.
many mamas. I'm one of those mamas who started all over
Mhm.
again. And so I am curious, what is your clientele with mamas over 40, either first time moms or moms that are starting over? And what does that look like? Is that consultation slightly different than a consultation with someone who may be in their early 30s or in their 20s? Or is it about the same? And do you have any different
Honestly,
points or tips for mommies that are over 40?
honestly, it's about the same. I feel like with my moms who have had it, I guess it depends on the gap also. I always like
11.
to look at like, yeah, I'm like, so when did you have your last baby? Because not only, does your body change, but also
Mhm,
like things have changed. Like
mhm,
society has changed. Your money might have changed. Your partner might be different.
mhm,
Sometimes that can be a good or a bad thing. Like, sometimes maybe they weren't in a different relationship and now this is like a totally different experience. Or, oh, like now I get to have my birthing center birth or my home birth and I don't have to go to
mhm,
the hospital or vice versa, you know?
mhm.
So I think the assessment with that is definitely different. And then also just helping women understand like the differences of having a child over 40, because it is different and it is harder on your body, especially in postpartum. Different things happen. You might lose a little bit more hair than you did the first time.
Mhm,
You might feel like, oh my gosh, I can't keep up as well as I can first time. And depending on how old your kids are, maybe you have help, maybe you don't with the new baby. And then also looking at like, what is your period going to do differently this time? And is this the closing of, are you done? Are you not done? I get a lot of that. Like, oh, I don't want this anymore. Like, what can I do next? I come over, hear that often. And then also I, tend to find a lot of multiple moms in their 40s, right? Because, our body has that great little closing out sale. We're like, let me just throw out all these like ovaries, all these eggs that I was holding back. Let me just put them out there. And so sometimes I get some twin moms, or and that can be really challenging, especially if you're just thinking I'm going to have one new addition and then you end up having two or three.
mhm.
So sometimes there's work also like around that. That's not even really birth related necessarily. It's just like,
Mhm.
how do I mentally accept what is happening right now?
Right.
And then I feel like also like the differences is looking at like what other practitioners can help you, especially if you're in your later 40s, because likely after that baby, you
Mhm.
do get into like perimenopause. It does
Mhm.
start happening. And
Mhm.
so what is that going to look like, and how is that hormones going to affect while you're having this toddler situation going on? Like, how is that going to be? And helping them find the resources for dealing with that. But the intake is the same. I ask the same similar questions. It just, the situations are definitely different depending on the person. And sometimes there's surprises. Sometimes I get moms who are just like, I didn't plan for this, but I'm doing it.
Right.
Right. I'm going to do this. What do
Here
I
we
do now?
are.
Like, what's new? I had a mom, this was years ago during the pandemic, and she was 49, beautiful baby boy born. That was my first, yeah, pandemic, like extreme situation like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I know for her, she couldn't believe like the amounts of products that are available now. She's like, when I had my kid 19 years ago, she's like, what is all of this stuff from, like, what is all this Frida? Like, what is this? I'm like,
Yeah.
stuff you don't need,
Right.
but it's here.
Right.
But,
Right.
it's just amazing just how much our world has progressed. But I think it's also just something to be mindful of, right? And I always like to remind moms, you don't need all this stuff, girl.
Yes.
Like, you don't need it. You don't at all. You have all this at your house,
And
in your
you
house, or someone can give it to you for
Yeah,
free.
and you end up packing so much of it up. A lot of it you don't even use. A lot of it you forget that you have it until you go in the back of the closet and you are literally packing it up and saying, "Oh, I never even used this. Maybe I can pass it on to somebody
Yeah.
else." You need some Pampers, you need wipes, and you need some onesies and a couple of
Yes, that's
blankets.
it.
That's really
I'm
it.
telling you,
That's all you
the
need.
amount of money, the consumerism that has come into motherhood for Gen Z and millennials is absolutely insane. The amount of things that we don't need and the amount of packaging and it's just like, and you're right, like half of the stuff ends up right back at my center. I promise you. If I were to show you that room right now, you would be like,
Mhm.
yeah. And I think that's just something that we have to look out for too, is and remember that, like, we
Yeah.
still live in a capitalist society and people are always marketing to us and they're always going to make us feel like we need something that we don't. And I think that's kind of one of the problems I have with a lot of the mom brands on the market is that they're always creating that feeling of like, you have this problem and only we can solve it with
Mhm.
this product. And that's just not the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, before we close, I have a few more questions, but one of the things
Yeah.
that I really would like to discuss and talk about that I don't hear a lot about, and I definitely wanted you to touch on this in our conversation today, is for moms with girls, moms with young ladies who are going to experience their cycle. What does that look
Mm,
like? How do we approach this? For many of us who might not have had the best period story,
yeah.
how do we make it a beautiful experience for our baby girls? How do we help them to love their womb and to embrace themselves and to love this time? Is a rites of passage, and how can not only we empower our young ladies in this area, but also our moms or our parents and our guardians, caregivers, those who are going to go through this process with our beautiful young ladies. What does that look like, and how does the menstrual doula approach this beautiful population?
Yeah. Well, it's a lot. It can come from a lot. It can be overwhelming depending on where you are and how you stand. And I think that's the first tip I always give people is it starts with you. You cannot create a space for somebody else to feel comfortable around this if you are not comfortable around it because they will feel that, they will understand that. And it's also important to remember like every period experience that you create within your family is also unique. You really have freedom to make it how you want to make it, but it's all about just making sure that it doesn't feel stressful or stigmatized to the person that you're sharing it with. But I do think that it starts with you getting comfortable with not the technology, well, yeah, the technology, right? The apps, sure, but also just the terms and also just that generation and what they are experiencing right now. That's also really important because what they are talking about is not what was happening when we were dealing with it and vice versa. So it's important to kind of also meet them where they are and recognize that now this is a great space and it's safe to talk about this. Another thing I always recommend is making sure that everyone else in your household is also comfortable with it, especially if it's like you're the dad or the brother or the person who doesn't get a period. Sometimes our words are very powerful and we don't really realize what we're saying or how that can affect in the long term. For example, if your husband, let's just say, or partner is always, in front of your children, like, you must be on your period, you're in a bad mood, or you know what I mean? That type of unintentional shaming, they pick that up because now that little girl, that little 8 or 9 year old is like, oh my gosh, like my dad is going to think that about me, or like, is my partner in the future going to feel that about me when that happens to me? Or if they don't even know what it means, that's the first time that they're hearing it
Mm-hmm.
and it's negative. So even if they don't really know what you're saying, they're going to be like, oh, this is what my dad was talking about, right? Then they make this connection that's not really a positive one. So I always say, like, it's a good place to start there. Just be like, hey, like, just, don't say that anymore, or let's just have that between us, right? And then putting your products out in your bathroom in an open space, not hidden in the cabinet. Like, make it cute, make it cute. And if you need help, I can help you with that. We do period kits and stuff like that in our office, but you can make a little caddy with your products, and you can put positive message in there, and that way they will ask about it. What is that? That's my period pack, or that's my period caddy, or that's mommy's womb kit. And honestly, especially the younger they are, they don't really care that much to know more about it. But it's just, again, you're making a positive association with what's there. So now when they see a pad, they're like, oh, that's the womb kit, right? Or that's what mommy uses like once a month. Or like, you want to make it like a thing without, you don't have to go that deep into it. Some moms like to go more extreme and just kind of leave a little blood in the toilet and let them ask about it, which is not as traumatizing as you might think. Sometimes the first thing is like, mommy, are you hurt? And it's a great time to be like, oh, no, I'm not hurt. Like, this is something that happens, and then it's just, and moms, they just move on. Oh, okay, right? Now, again, you're your own child. Now, if they're the type who's very skittish or doesn't like, some kids don't like to be stuck, they don't want to see that, that's different. And you can figure out what that looks like for you, but you'd be surprised, like, if you just kind of introduce kids into something, they'll just accept it more often than not. Then if you start making it like this thing that you're hiding, then they start to get curious in the wrong way. And then if they get curious in the wrong way, they're not going to ask you. They're going to go ask their friends, who's going to tell them something probably completely ridiculous or not true, or something they saw on TikTok or YouTube Shorts or whatever they're looking at these days, right? So you want to like be able to navigate and manage that. But the period products is a good way. And then the other great way is to honestly partner with a nonprofit that does packing parties. And I say that because you can sit there, pack the bags, and give it to charity. It opens up questions. It does something good for the community. And again, they just see the product. The products are the best way to go for both genders, right? Because even my son, he's packed many period packs. He knows what a pad is. He knows what a tampon is. Does he care that much? No, but he knows what it is, and it's not a big deal to him, because that's also important. We need to create people who don't menstruate and need to have good experience with periods as well. They also need to have a positive period story, so they feel comfortable enough to be like, oh, don't we want to have men who are just like, I picked up pads for you at the store. I brought you that ginger tea because I knew, right? That's what we're trying to develop. But if you don't like make it a part of the routine so they see it and realize that it's happening to you, they're not going to accept it as easily. It's going to be more shocking to them. And then as far as like educating them on a period before they get it, which I think is very important, again, you need to do that with your own experience in your own way as well. If you're a dad, like a single dad, because I have some of those as well, you can reach out to people like me. You can reach out to your sister, another person who you feel comfortable talking to or feel that has a good relationship with your child that can help you navigate this. Or you can just be straight up about it. You'd be surprised. Sometimes I say like, hey, just go buy the pads, right? See what happens. But I think the whole idea is making it not scary and not stigmatized by making it normal. And for it to be normal, it has to be just like you serving dinner every night. You have to say like, hey, son, can you go down aisle so-and-so and get those pads for me? Let's put those in the cart. Don't make it a thing. It's a part of your hygiene supplies, toothpaste, pads, toilet paper.
Right.
It's nothing else than that. And only girls need it, but it's still a part of the supplies, right?
Yes, yes.
So only you need that type of razor, but it's a part of the supply. So, and then I also just recommend getting like resources based on the age group that you're working with as well is important. You don't want to overwhelm them with too much information. My young kids, like I promise you, those like that educational part needs to be 20 minutes or less. And it needs to be real simple and really to the point, because they don't want to talk about it. And I think it's important for us to remember as parents, like, that's just being a child. Like, just, they don't want to like, oh, I don't want to talk about it with you, mom.
Right.
So if that's the case, then what would make them comfortable? Would it be cool if you got a bunch of their friends together and had somebody, like me or that womb person come in and like make a session, have a red tent party, host a packing party, or we all just talk and you hear some period stories. That's why Menstrual Market is so important, because I want to make that for them. You can just go look it up. Just go and see that you're not alone. But also just reminding them like, this is something that we're all going to go through, but you want you to just be prepared. Because that's really like the most common thing that I hear about is like, oh, nobody told me and I didn't know what to do. Or I asked my friend and I put the pad on backwards. Or I didn't want to use a tampon my first product, but that's what my friend gave me. So I had that many times. Like, oh, I just been a tampon user my whole life because I didn't know there was any other products, because my mom never told me there was any other products. I just asked somebody. Right? And then be open to products. There's so much more now, right? Period underwear is wonderful for beginning menstruators. It is my go-to favorite product because there's no learning curve. They know how to wear underwear.
Yeah.
They should.
Yeah.
They should know how to. If your kid doesn't know how to wear underwear by 7, we need to talk about that separately. But they know how to wear underwear, right? And so you can just now make it a special thing. Like, oh, guess what? We get to wear our period panties now. And then you, as the menstruator, you can get a matching set with them, which is my favorite thing to do. Make it cute.
Yes.
Match it up. Wear it with them. Even if you're not on your period, put the panties on and pretend you are.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Oh my gosh, we have to be in our period together,
Yes.
And then, like, as they do that, that's their time for you to start now introducing those, like, healthy things. Like, oh, like, this is some things we can eat that are good for our period. Or, oh, let's take a walk. Or we can do this yoga class. You can make it, like, something like that, And again, I don't tell people, like, you have to love your cycle. Like, you don't have to. Like, some people they don't want to deal with it. They don't like it, and that's fine. You don't have to like it.
Mm-hmm.
But it is good to know how to just manage it because it is just a part of your life that you have to deal with, and it doesn't have to be as negative as you make it. And then that also gives you a time to now recognize and tell them, like, hey, here's how you can track your cycle. Tell me if you're having pain, give them the guideline of, hey, here's something that's normal, not normal. Like, they need to know those things so they can talk to you about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is also another thing that's very common, especially in communities of color, is we do not talk to each other about our things. And then I have clients who will find out their mom had a whole hysterectomy and didn't know. You know what I mean? Or I had no idea my grandmother also had fibroids and went through, like, because no one's talking about it. So you want to build that in the beginning and tell them your period story. Oh, this is what happened when I first got my period. Like, let me tell you about my story,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Do that.
Mm-hmm.
That is the best and quickest way to connect with them is be like, oh my gosh, that happened to you. Oh, let me tell you what happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And then ask them what they want from you. How can I support you on this journey? Like, would you prefer it if I just put the pads in the bathroom when we don't talk about it right now? Or do you want to have a conversation? Do you want us to go and get something to eat every month is that going to be our lunch date? Like, figure out like what they want from you and
Mm-hmm.
just respect that also. You don't have to force it. I've definitely had those moms who have called me and be like, oh, I want to throw a menarche party for and I'm like, well, does she want to do that? Because maybe she doesn't. Or
Right.
maybe not yet. Maybe she wants to like have a period for a few months and then celebrate it. And that's also really cool. You don't have to do it right away. I find that's like a trend right now. A lot of my moms are like, oh my God, first period, we gotta and I'm like, does she want to do that? You can wait a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she's ready to talk about it or feel open about it and discuss it and do all that. It doesn't have to be initially. You can keep it super simple. Yeah. But those are a lot.
And I loved it
Little
all.
tips.
I love it. Well, that's so beautiful. I mean, because I think those tips, especially like you said, within our community, it's really quiet and hush hush. And there are a lot of things that we don't discuss and talk about. So for those who are watching, I hope that, those are just great tips and gems that you just dropped. Even though you say it was a lot, I think it was something for everybody to take away with that for
And
sure.
everybody. And that's the key. Just because you don't have a girl, prepare your boys too. Let
Yeah.
them, you don't have to explain it to them, but tell them like, hey, this happens, like this is what it is, and here's how you can help that person, right?
Hmm.
I feel like in training students, like it's really important that we be mindful of language and the way we're talking about things. Like one phrase I try not to use when I'm working with students is the word period poverty. Even like just saying that can be very triggering for some people because now they're like, oh my gosh, like I don't have pads at my house and now I'm poor, like I'm period poverty. Do you know what I mean? And then you know how kids are mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so I always like tell people to also just be really mindful of the terms and language that you're using around like menstruation and like, even just simple things like, oh, period stain. You know what I mean? People will take things like that and run with it. Kids are,
Not
but
kind.
not kind, but we want to create environments and we want to change that, right? And that starts at home. And that's why you have to, even like as a parent who doesn't have a menstruator, hey, if you see someone with period blood, like don't make fun of them.
Right.
Help them.
Right.
Give them your jacket to tie around their waist or go and get them a pad or go tell the teacher that they're in the bathroom, right? So it's
Absolutely.
important that you say that, even if you think, I know sometimes I have boy moms or there's no, and I'm like, you have the most work to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For sure. For sure. So, as we close, what is on the horizon for the menstrual doula? What's next, Nikki? What's coming up next for you?
Well, what's next? Well, we're stepping into, menstrual hygiene time, menstrual hygiene awareness and all of that. I mean, it's a continuing thing for the whole year. It shouldn't just be a month. But so I feel like as that's continuing to grow, we want to be able to just provide people with more tools to talk about periods. And also not just products, but also different resources, protocols, and ideas, and events and concepts that you can just make this conversation easier, not just for menstrual health, but maternal health as well. We have our retreat that we do every year. That's every year in September in Costa Rica. So we're excited about that. And then I'm excited to launch some of these new courses that are going to be coming to Menstrual Doula this summer. So we'll have a Yoni Blends course, a placenta course, and 2 levels of menstrual doula training that will be self-paced online. So I'm really looking forward to releasing that and making it affordable and accessible to as many people as possible.
Yay! I was just going to ask you about your courses for anybody watching who would be interested in working with you or just learning more or wanting to become their own menstrual doula in their community and what that may look like, how they can learn from you. So that's really good. And we'll make sure that we put the website in the description so that people
Thank
can
you.
click on there and support you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's always one question that I ask every guest that comes on. With everything that you have experienced in life and everything that you know now, the good, the bad, right? And all of the stuff in between, what would you tell little Nikki? What would you tell your younger self?
Ooh, oh my gosh, that's a good question. What would I tell little Nikki? I would tell her to be patient and trust your instincts. Sometimes the world takes time to catch up with you, but put it out there anyway, because that's what's going to start the chain reaction. But even if no one is talking about it, you talk about it and it will be all right. Yeah. Be brave, Nikki. Be brave, little Nikki.
Yay. How can people get in touch with you? What's the website? What are your ats on social media? How can people get in touch with Nikki, the menstrual doula?
Absolutely. So my website is menstrualdoula.com. You can reach me there. That's the best way to get in touch with me. I'm on social media at menstrual doula as well. Basically, everything is at menstrual doula, guys. You can find everything there. But yes, feel free to reach out to me for a consultation, and I will definitely probably give you a nice little code or something so you can get like a little special discount. Let me work on that for you.
Yes,
Maybe
please.
I'll just make it indigo.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I want to thank you so much. This has been such a rich conversation, and I'm so happy that we were able to connect. You have shared so much information today, so many gems. Your spirit is absolutely beautiful. And anybody who gets an opportunity to work with you, I feel is extremely blessed to be in your presence
To
because
you.
this conversation was an absolute pleasure. And so I thank you for taking your time and your energy and sharing your knowledge and just your beautiful smile and spirit with us
Oh, thank you.
today. I hope that you will come back in the future to just share more information and also to share new things that are happening and what's going on in your world. So I look forward to collaborating with you very soon. But I want to thank
Too.
you for being here today.
No, thank you for having me. This was such an honor, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing and making sure that, people like us are heard and we can reach more people too. So we honor you and we thank you too, sis. Appreciate it. Keep going.
Thank you so much. We out here encouraging each other to do this work,
Yeah.
okay? I want to thank everybody for joining today. Please come back, like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you in the next episode. Peace.
Thanks.